My name's Al-Saad. I'm the founder of Foura, which is a matchmaking service for mates not dates. Essentially, we exist to help people make friends, and we do it in a fun, easy, and really interesting way. So our members sign up and they tell us all about their hobbies, their interests, experiences, and values. And we have an algorithm that matches them into groups of 4 and books a table for them to meet face to face. So there's no swiping, there's no profiles, there's no admin. You literally go from signing up to meeting up. We work with partner venues at the moment across Sydney and Melbourne, and we're expanding soon into Brisbane, Adelaide, and Perth. With kind of eyes on hopefully one day global domination.
Mate, that's great. That's so good to hear. So coming out of the pandemic, how have you found things going for your business?
Yeah, so coming out of the pandemic, it was an interesting time. I was kind of part of that great resignation group who evaluated their life and their career and everything else during lockdown. And I should probably preface this by saying I love my job. I love the people that I worked with. I love the people that I worked for. I was having a good time. I was doing well. I'd been in digital marketing in some form or another for more than 15 years at that point. It's not that I hated my job and that's why I resigned. I wanted to do something more. And through the pandemic, realized quite what I'm capable of and decided I wanted more for myself and that I didn't necessarily want to be in marketing anymore. Through that process, it being in lockdown, kind of thinking about the type of business that I wanted to start. I wanted it to be something that could be kind of globally successful, something that I was deeply passionate about and something that I thought would help people. And, we were all in lockdown for, the first one, I guess, maybe didn't seem so bad, but it still felt like a long time, at the time. And it was clear the impact that it had on mental health and on how isolated and lonely people were feeling. There's a lot of discussion about it. I was fortunate enough to live with friends at the time, so kind of felt it less so, but still the being denied the opportunity to go out, to hang with your friends, your family, your loved ones, and to meet them face to face was something that I wanted to solve. So I started working on Foura in March 2021. Kind of got it just about up and running. I think we'd hosted 10 groups, maybe 12, and then Sydney went back into lockdown. And so all of a sudden, I've got this business that is fully focused on bringing people together face to face, and we weren't allowed to do that anymore, which was not fun, to put it mildly. That was a very stressful couple of weeks. I quit my job, put everything I had into this business, had very limited money in terms of savings and what I was going to do, and then it was all just pulled from underneath me. And I was passionate that I didn't want to change to a model where people would meet online because it's just not the same feeling. That's what we learned during the pandemic. We had more video calls than ever before even with our friends, right? Like I'd never video called mates before, but all of a sudden we're using Zoom for Friday drinks and pub quizzes and trivia and everything else. But it's not seeing our friends on the screen that we missed. It was seeing them in person. It was hugging them. It was properly hearing their voice without that digital distortion. It's not having a drink with them or having a drink at the same time with them. It's having a drink in person with them, not holding a bottle or a can or a glass up to the screen and saying cheers. It's actually hearing that clink that makes all the difference. So I decided to persevere and figured one day, sooner or later, lockdown was going to end. And when it does, people were going to be wanting to get out, and that was the case. The first couple of weeks after lockdown are still the busiest weeks we've had in terms of people signing up. There was we'd really tapped into a problem, and I don't know if I still don't consider Foura successful. I think we've still got a long way to go yet, but I don't think it will have had the traction and the success that we've had so far if it wasn't off the back of lockdown and people having the opportunity to realize that they did feel lonely.
We'll come back to what success looks like for you and your business a bit later. But I wanted to kind of ask, you said you had like 15 plus years of experience in marketing. Do you think that experience has allowed you or helped you to create the business that you've created?
When I say I had 15 years experience in marketing wasn't always my full role, if you will. Certainly the 5 years before, actually the 7 years before I started working on Foura, I was only doing digital marketing, but my career started out in startups, and I joined a company back in the UK as the fourth employee. And while I was still at university, and when I graduated, they gave me a full-time job and basically asked me, like, what do you want to do? And I said everything. For the first few years, I did literally everything from working with developers, working with creatives, accounting, finance, operations, recruitment, sales, account management, customer service. I did a little bit of everything for a few years. And that, I think, first and foremost, gave me a really good understanding of not just how to do those things, but the roles that each department and each job function plays within a business, particularly a growing business. And so I think that experience, and you know, I said I joined that company as the fourth employee. It grew to more than 80 people operating around 5 countries. And the experience of seeing that trajectory and how a business and how people evolve and grow over time, I think set me up best for starting my own business. However, marketing is an absolutely critical part in a business's success. Without customers, you can't do anything. So there has been so much that I've applied in the 2 years that I've been working on Foura that has almost become second nature to me. You know, when it comes to writing website copy, writing ads, trying to find new customers, where to post, how to post, when to post, the you know, where I would find my customers, and even just thinking about who my customer would be, that all comes from my 15 years of digital marketing experience. And so it's definitely been a huge contribution. In fact, if you were to ask me what the most successful part of Foura so far is, it would be our marketing. You know, we've been really successful at attracting clients, and I would argue that it's the other stuff that we need to work on.
Yeah, it's interesting, man, because like similar to yourself, I spent my first few years just trying to learn as much as I could from the startup that I was. Well, I say startup, it was a small company that I was in, working back in the UK. And I think that anyone of, you know, getting into the industry, no matter what you're doing, you should be trying to learn as much as you can about business in particular, and how it works, the operation side of things versus finance, and just trying to absorb more than just your job role. You know, if you're a designer, for example, you're not just thinking about painting pretty pictures. You're thinking about, oh, what does our client really want? What do they need? And the same for if you're in a marketing role. You know, you're thinking about the financial aspect of the marketing and ROI, ramifications if you get things wrong, and the impacts it has on a business.
Yeah, and I think when it comes to learning, you know, you should definitely read, right? Definitely read, definitely listen to podcasts, definitely watch videos. But there's a phrase that I like, that it doesn't matter how many videos or books you read or how much content you consume about doing push-ups, you're never going to get fitter until you actually get down on the ground and start doing them. You know what I mean? And so like, learning takes so many different forms. And I think so many people are obsessed with this, you know, this consumption of knowledge, which is great, really healthy. But unless you actually apply it and see how it works in practice, you're actually never going to get anywhere, right? You need to do the work. You need to put in the hours. You need to do the push-ups.
Yeah. It's this thing around consistency, isn't it? You do the same thing over and over again, you can't. It's impossible to fail.
Exactly. And so that's why it's as good as it is to have that broad understanding. You really do have to have those core skills first and foremost, right? There's no point branching off to try and figure out how to do, you know, everything else until you're actually good at your job. Get the basics right, get your fundamentals right, get consistent with it, and then you can definitely start to explore a lot more and understand, okay, what is my bigger role in this? But you've got to get those fundamentals right first.
Yeah. So just circling back a little bit to what you was talking about earlier with regards to Foura and the success and what success looks like. So you said that you started Foura in 2021 with literally just the idea. Is that how it kind of went? Obviously, we supported you with helping you with some branding, which was really fun for us to get into. What does success look like for you and for your business?
So yeah, when we started, I don't think I didn't even have a fully formed idea. I had this general concept of what I wanted to do. And it was, bringing 4 people at a time with them never meeting, never talking, and just coming together. I didn't have a company name. I had nothing, right? Like nothing. I started with literally nothing. And that really evolved over time very, very quickly. I put the pressure on myself to be like, okay, really figure this out. How does that work? Success for me from that, how many people have made friends as a result of what we do? Like that's our core kind of driving point. That's what we go after. That's what makes me happy when I see it, and that's where I get disappointed when it doesn't work. Right? It's all about how many people are we actually helping to make friends. That's our key metric. In the 2 years, we've helped 4,500 people meet, and I don't know exactly how many of them have become friends, but I've heard a lot of stories about a lot of them doing that, and it's great. For me, that 4,500 number, it's kind of, it is impressive in some ways, and in others, I'm just like, that's nowhere close to where I want to be. I know how many. So let me hit you with a stat. In Australia, 40% of people feel lonely. Apparently, according to a survey from Telstra last year. In the US, the number is as high as 60%, and it's even more pronounced in younger generations. So it's a growing problem, something that's only going to get worse with time as we become more invested in digital experiences, as we remote work more and spend less time with our colleagues and the people that we know. And I think this is even more important for younger generations, right? Like me and you, when we started out, we went into an office, we met people who were doing things, we got dragged along to the pub to socialize with them. Some of my friends that I've got to this day have been people that I worked with, right? And when you work remotely, that opportunity is so much harder. Still possible, but it just happens less often, and it's so much harder to do. And so 4,500 people meeting on its own sounds like a good number. Put it into comparison into how many people need this help though, and it really pales in significance. So that, on top of the fact that I know we can do better, I know we can improve our processes, I know we can improve our software, our tech, I know we can reach so many more people, just means that for me, until we've helped a lot more people, I wouldn't consider it hugely successful.
Yeah. What's the number? What's the aim?
The aim, I don't know, a billion. Like you got to aim big. I don't know. Is that naive? Is it optimistic? Is it delusional, or is it just aspirational? I don't know. But I say those numbers to people sometimes, and they laugh, and I get why they laugh. But for me, it's not a joke. Like it's what we're capable of if we get things right. And so, what's going to happen? I'll get to, even if we got to a billion, I'd be like, cool. We might as well do one more, right? Like, and then one more, and then one more, and then one more. I think the way I've kind of positioned success for myself, at least as a founder, as an entrepreneur, is if I can build a bigger business than the companies I've already been in, that's like the first benchmark, right? Can I at least build something that's as good as what I was at previously? And if I can look back at myself and say, I've really accomplished something here. I'm really proud of what I've done. But I have an insatiable appetite. The no number is ever enough, right? If you can do a billion, you can do 2 billion. You can do 2 billion, you can do more. So yeah, we'll just keep pushing until we find out.
Yeah. Well, hopefully your platform can make its way into education and support kids, in a slightly different way outside of the education system, where perhaps you're facilitating groups to get together, and or colleges as well. Who knows, mate, where this really goes. You look at companies like Facebook and Amazon. Only 10 years ago, maybe a bit longer, they were, just ideas, and now look, Amazon they're both globally recognized brands, and they're not doing what they were doing 10 years ago. They're not doing what they were doing probably 5 years ago.
Yeah.
Look at Amazon. It's gone from selling books to selling toilet paper.
Well, I think Amazon and Facebook are really interesting kind of examples in very different ways, right? So with Facebook, if you've seen the social network, for example, you can, those conversations they had where like it started off as a just rate who's hotter, right? Like that's literally how it started off. And it kind of evolved into this thing. Social networking became a thing over that time. And then all of a sudden it's now a lot of things for a lot of people. It's how people stay in contact, it's how people share information, it's where people get news, it's how people sort events, it's how advertisers build their business. It's so many different things, right? But that was very much from a, I don't know what this business is. Like, I think there's even a quote in the movie, like, we don't want to put advertising on it. We don't even know what it is. We just know it's cool. Amazon is a really interesting one because they were a little bit different. Like, I don't know if you know this, but they started out with books, but they always had this vision of doing everything, right? Like, they just started with books because books are rectangular and flat. And so they're easy to put into boxes, they're easy to package up, and they're easy to send out. So Amazon selling books to start with was all about them figuring out logistics. It was like, how do we take an order and get it to a customer, right? And so once they'd figured that out, them selling toilet paper and electronics and all sorts of whatever weird and wonderful things, I think was always the plan. That was always in there. Them doing TV, Amazon Prime, them doing, these big data warehouses and AWS, that is completely left field. Yeah, that's like, where on earth has that come from? And so what I love is that there was this, with Facebook, there was this approach of, let's just keep building and see what people are telling us and see what the opportunities are. With Amazon, it was this vision of what it could always be. And then when it became it, they went, great, what else can we do? and blew up from there. So I think they're two really fascinating kind of business growth stories in their own right.
Insane. I think the point here is, though, essentially start. If you're thinking about setting up a business and you're passionate about it and it serves a purpose and it's helping others, you should start it and not worry about where it's going to end up. You should just have a crack, and in 10 years time you might find that your business is in a slightly different place as what it was when you first started, and that's okay. But as long as the fundamentals are there, which are helping others, and it has a purpose and you're passionate about it, they're the things that I feel that drive a business success. Yeah, because it's the same for me. My idea around Cureative is helping others through design, supporting people to bring their ideas to life. It started with just PowerPoint design, and now we're doing, video content, animation, digital design, Zoom backgrounds. Like, it's all happening.
I think you're absolutely right. Like, the best thing you can do is just get started, right? And if I try to bring it back to that push-up example and work in Facebook and Amazon, Amazon had this vision of what they wanted to do, right? So say their vision is to be able to do 1,000 push-ups in a day or whatever, right? Yeah, you can think about how you're going to do 1,000, but start with one. Do a push-up and see how you get on. You know what I mean? Facebook, similar kind of thing. They're like, oh, we kind of know what we want to do. Maybe we want to get fit or whatever. All right, cool. Do you know exactly how you're going to do that? No, just do a push-up. Just start with a push-up and see where that takes you, right? And you're right. The worst thing that you can do is make these assumptions that are purely based on your own opinion. You know what I mean? Oh, I don't think I'm good enough, or I don't think they'll go for that. I don't think anybody wants this. Find out. Go out, ask the question. You know what I mean? Like, just go out and speak to people and see what happens.
Mate, exactly that. And it's going back to that point you said earlier about, reading a book and not taking any action. It's that, right? You need to take action. It's not going to fall on your lap. For some people it might, but generally it doesn't work out that way.
If you sit and do nothing, the chances of something falling in your lap, very, very slim, right? If you go out and you speak to people and you do things and you're going there and you're going there and you're doing whatever, and you're out there, you're literally putting it out there, something might fall in your lap. And that's the experience that I've had. Things have fallen in our lap, but it's all as a result of putting in hard work and doing things in other ways. And that then brings you the good work.
For sure. I agree, man. So a little bit more about your business, Foura, and what you've created so far. I'm sure there's some challenges that you've come across. I've certainly had my fair share. I'd love to hear a little bit about your challenges.
Yeah, sure. Firstly, starting a business by yourself is probably the biggest challenge, right? Like, I'm good at marketing. I've done a little bit of everything else. You know, you're great at design, and you've been doing that for years. But all of a sudden, you go from being a marketer or a designer to having an insane breadth of responsibilities, right? Like, you are now the lead designer, you're the lead accountant, you're the HR manager, you're you're the person doing interviews, you're doing sales, you're doing everything else, right? And so I think the first challenge is having to upskill on so many different things, particularly when you start by yourself. And that's why it's always great if you can start a business with someone else who complements your skills. That is an ongoing challenge. That's something that 2 years later I'm still facing, I'm still dealing with now. And it probably always will be, right? Like, I will hire great people to come in and do some of the other stuff, but ultimately I'm still always going to be learning, always trying to figure out, and always trying to get better. But the other big challenge for me was trying to build a tech product when I can't code. I've managed tech projects in the past. I've worked closely with developers. I understand a little bit about how tech works. Could not write a single line of code if I tried. So for me, that was a huge challenge especially it still is now, but particularly in the early days. I talked about how Sydney went into lockdown, and in that time, I decided, okay, this is a good time to build the tech. So I tried looking for someone to help me build the tech. I wanted to bring them into the business originally. Started asking around, speaking to people. Hey, do you know anyone who can help me build this? Anyone who's looking for a new job? Anyone who's looking for something interesting? Couldn't find anyone, but one of the people that I asked said they ran an agency that helps development. So cool, brought them on board. It was meant to be a 3-month project that was meant to cost $30,000. And after 3 months, we were nowhere near ready to launch. And now Sydney had just opened up and we were ready to go again. So I had to keep working out of a spreadsheet, which is how I started the business. It was literally just a spreadsheet and Gmail templates. And I was matching up groups of 4 people at a time and booking venues and doing all of it manually, right? So I was like, crap, doing 10 groups via a spreadsheet was hard. And now we've just had 400 people sign up. And I've got no software to do this. How am I gonna make it happen? In the end, I just made it happen, right? But the tech project continued, which should have taken 3 months and cost $30,000. Ended up being 9 months and costing probably more than $90,000. Yeah, there were a lot of mistakes that were made to create that problem. Firstly, I was foolish to think that I knew enough about what the software needed in order to start the project. Having done 10 groups, I was like, oh, okay, well, this happens and this happens sometimes. So we need to build this and we need to build that. That was way off, right? I should have been more patient on building the tech, because I really didn't know what I needed the tech to do in any great detail. So that led to me writing a really bad brief and giving a bad brief to the developers, not explaining things in as much detail as I could, which then led to them building a bad product. I also, so that was kind of probably the key thing. The bad brief is something that I've learned from, you'll know this, Wayne. You guys really crap briefs, and then they got slowly better and better, but I hope.
Definitely did, for sure.
Well, you were lucky if you got a brief at all at the beginning, right? But fair play to you for forcing me to do one, so thank you. I managed the project really badly as well, and understanding more about the timelines that I need to set people and setting the expectations and doing all that kind of work. So those are the big things that really ended up costing us. Those were perhaps the biggest challenge. Other challenges are, you're not short on them. We're looking to raise investment, or we are raising investment. So understanding how that whole process works, who to speak to, what to say, what not to say, what they want to see, what they don't want to see, how you get hold of them, how long that whole process takes, has been a massively steep learning curve, and it's still ongoing. But I like to think that I've definitely learned enough that I can, when we raise again next time, I'll have a much better clue of what I'm doing and how to do it. And it's something that I kind of give people advice on now. So yeah, plenty of challenges, but those are the biggest ones. Now, we eventually did manage to find somebody to come on board and build the tech with us. I've now got 2 engineers, 2 developers working with me. Great dudes, really understanding. We work a lot closer. We're in the same time zone. We work out of the same office. And having that expertise and that knowledge in-house has really made a big difference. Yeah, and that's the challenges become less over time, but you solve a challenge, you find a new one that you need to deal with.
Yeah.
There's no shortage of challenges. It's about which one's going to have the biggest impact, which one do we solve now, and then what do we do next? Like, just prioritization is probably one of the key skills that you can have.
Yeah, and I think something else that you touched upon there was the patience aspect of all of this. And I think so often we're like, I want it tomorrow, I want it done, and that can cost. It clearly has cost you with the app development process that you went through and that you just mentioned about there. But I think we're used to that instant gratification and getting things immediately. You know, think about Uber Eats. Open your phone, 2 clicks, you can have food delivered to your door within an hour. And I think that with building a business, with building a career, with having a job, you know, you need to be patient and allow, you know, the journey to kind of play out a little bit.
Yeah, it's a really tricky one though, like, because you're spot on. You're absolutely right. Patience is so critical. It's so key, and it's never been a key skill of mine, unfortunately. But at the same time, you know, when we talk about like just get started, just do that push up, there's also an urgency, right? Like, you have to be patient, but you also have to push at the same time, right? So like, and that's perhaps been one of the biggest kind of, you know, if you step back and look at it overall, for me, that's maybe been the biggest challenge. At times I've gone fast when I should have gone slow, and then other times I've gone slow when I should have gone fast. And knowing when you should do one or the other is a huge challenge, a huge problem, but it is critical, because, you know, you think about it, like, you could dawdle at a slow speed for ages and it just never really picks up, never really gets anywhere. And that's really unhealthy for businesses. If you're gonna, you know, particularly in the startup world, like, if you're gonna fail fast, right? But failure and patience, I guess, are very different, right? Like, sometimes you do just need to wait and see. It's really tough. So yeah, that balance between patience and urgency is something I'm still working on.
Yeah, me too.
Can I have a question? As you said before, like, yeah, nowadays it's more challenging to have friends, to make friends due to what happened to the pandemic. For example, my case, I came from Colombia here, and what was very tough for me to meet people with the same interests, same things, and pandemic happened. So for 2 years, I had to keep on home, you know, was so difficult, so tough. But as well, more difficult, I think, that make friends is to keep friends. Now that we were talking about that evolution about Amazon, how Amazon now is making toilet paper, books, and everything, is there a post process for Foura, like, keep people in contact? Let's say, like, I was thinking like Foura Plus, you know, like an extra service, because sometimes it's easy, you know, go for a pub, grab a beer, and meet people. But next day, personally, I don't even remember names. Yeah.
You're drinking too much, Juan.
No, it's because English names are different. So yeah, is there any like a post process for the Foura?
There isn't at the moment, but there is a vision for it. So you're 100% right. When it comes to making friends, yeah, meeting people is obviously just the first step. And there are studies that show if you spend 20 hours with someone, you're an acquaintance. If you spend, I think it's like 40 to 60 hours with somebody, they're a friend. 200 plus, they're a close friend. So what we want to do is try and help people get to that 200. And so if they want to, we're not going to force them to, right? But like, you know, if after 20 hours you realize, nah, I'm not hanging out with this dude anymore, cool, fine, right? But what we want to do is, yeah, first we want to set up this initial meeting, which is what we do now. And then we're looking at partnering with activity and experience providers to give our pods an opportunity to meet for a second, third, fourth, fifth time. So for example, say we've got 4 blokes who meet and they have a really good time. They go to the pub, they have a few beers, good conversation. They talk about sport, say I talk about football, right? Our plan is to try and partner with football organizations or football teams, right? And say, okay, hey, you four had a great time together. All four of you said that you're staying in touch. Well, why don't you go to the Sydney AFC game this weekend? We can sell you the ticket. We partner with the club, we partner with Ticketek, whoever it may be, and then help you have that opportunity to meet for a second time. Or we've got four people who all love food, or maybe, four people who meet and maybe only two of them really get on, right? We could sell tickets to a cooking class that they can do together and have that experience. So, friendship isn't just about the time that you spend together. It's also about the experiences that you share. That helps to build your friendships. And so for us, that's our longer term vision. Is how do we bring people together for a second, third, and fourth and fifth time? So it's definitely what we're working towards. I'm hoping to bring that in as a feature this year. But the reality is we're a small team with a lot to do. And so it's all about priorities and what's the first challenge that we've got to solve. So yeah, it's a really good question. It's definitely something we've got an eye on, and we want to bring in over the next year or so.
Wow, sounds incredible. Sounds really good.
Juan's girlfriend, Danny, has signed up to your app, and I think you've partnered her up with a bunch of people, and she's about to head out. Is she, Juan? Is that right?
Well, yeah. Well, she's already signed in, but she's waiting for a confirmation for the last person. It's like I don't know how it works. Actually, thank you for reminding me that, Wayne. So, for example, the idea is to have a group of 4 people going to a place, right? But what happens if you always have like a spot that is constantly changing and changing? How that works? I mean, is the meeting is not going to happen until 4 people are there, like confirmed? Oh.
Yeah, good question. So the way it works is when you sign up and you put in your hobbies and interests, you also put in the dates that you're available, right? So you could say maybe every Wednesday, or maybe just next Wednesday and next Thursday, but not the Wednesday afterwards, the Thursday afterwards, whatever, right? We then create a group based on the best possible combination that we can find. We email those 4 people and send them a text message and say, hey, we've got a group for you this day at this time. Here's all the things that you have in common. Can you make it, yes or no? Right? If someone says no, then what we do is we find the next best available person. So who else is still available and fits this group, right? And it might change the dynamic a little bit. It might change some of the hobbies and interests, but we try and find the best fit, basically. When all 4 people have said yes, we book it in and confirm the venue with you there and then, basically. Now that's a challenge in itself. People don't always respond to emails. Sometimes people don't respond at all. So you can just miss an email, your availability changes. There's a whole bunch of things we're working on new features to make that easier and to make that better. But yeah, in a nutshell, that's kind of how it all works. And the important thing to note is that when I say the next best person, that doesn't mean they're not as good as the person who we're bringing in, right? Because what happens is people become available or unavailable on our platform for a variety of reasons. Maybe they had their account paused for a while, and so they weren't considered for the group initially, but then they unpaused and now they're available. Or maybe they just joined, right? Maybe we create the group yesterday based on 4 people, and then someone joins tonight, and tomorrow we find out someone can't make it. Cool, and that person joins. So it's all about just trying to find the best fit for the group.
Great, that's awesome, man. What a journey. All right, we've got some quick fire questions for you. The first one is, how do you escape from work? Which is a tricky one because work is life.
Work is life when you're a founder, yeah. No, I do try to switch off as much as I can. And for the first 18 months, I really couldn't, because we were doing groups every Wednesday to Sunday. And so even on the weekends, I'd have to be available to respond to emails, to change things up and to do different things. We ended up automating all of that. So I now have my evenings and weekends back, which is great. In terms of how I unwind, some of it's just the stuff that most people do. Netflix, I find a lot of joy and a lot of kind of thing in cooking. It's a process. It's something that you have to focus on. It's something you can still experiment with. You get an end result, you finish, then hopefully somebody else does the washing up. And then unsurprisingly for me, it's social time, right? Like I build a social business. I need to spend time with people. So for me, like just sitting with mates and hanging out is great. When I can, I like to go camping, just get away from it all for the whole weekend. No cell phone reception.
Mm.
Enjoy being outdoors, hopefully in the sun. And yeah, that's probably the best way that I can do it.
Yeah. And what does your routine look like, and how do you set up for your day?
So I discovered pretty early on that I thrive on a mix of routine and chaos. So what I mean by that is there are certain things I need. There's a certain level of routine that I need, but if I do the same thing every single day, I'll go crazy. So for me, every day starts pretty much the same way. Get up early, 6:30, get ready, have a healthy breakfast, leave the office, leave the house, and I'm normally in the office before 8:30.
Yep.
First thing I'll do is just plan out my day, right? So I'll just go, my day always starts with checking my emails from the night before, clearing my inbox, and then taking care of all the groups that are meeting either that day or over the next few days. And then from there, it can be anything. And it all depends on the challenges and the priorities that we're facing at the time. So it really does vary, but that start of the day is very regimented. And that sets me off right. Normally meditation in there as well, I forgot to mention. I always kind of have my lunch break at pretty much the same time. I find I can't think if I have, I get hungry basically. I get hungry, I can't do anything. But if I eat too late, I become really unproductive, right? And if I eat too early, I get unproductive in the afternoon. So there's that kind of breaking thing. But every day ends up looking very differently, and that's what I love about being a founder, being an entrepreneur, and it's what I loved about my previous jobs is that I'm never doing the same thing every single day. It's always different. There might be aspects that are always the same that are consistent. You get better and better at those. But for the most part, my day-to-day, my week-to-week looks phenomenally different every time.
And I suppose just the last couple of questions. What's the best piece of advice versus the worst piece of advice that you've been given?
The best piece of advice I'd say is just get started. Just do those push-ups. Just ask the question. You know what I mean? Don't assume too much and get in your own head. Get the work started, get it done, and see what happens. Just like do and see. Basically, would be the best piece of advice. The worst piece of advice I got personally when I started the business, and I got people to sign up just to check the flow and see how it works, and then send it on to their mates if they wanted to sign up. And someone said to me, so one of the questions we had was, when are you available to meet people? And someone I know, and I respect very well, has their own business, really successful, said, don't ask them when to meet, let them figure that out. Just connect them and let them do the rest of the work. What it said to me was he just didn't understand the value proposition of what we're doing, right? Because a lot of the feedback that we've had since is that one of the things they love most about Foura is that they don't have to do any of the planning. Like, I don't know if you've ever used dating apps, but you spend, my thing I always say about them is you spend more time chatting and swiping than you do dating, which is dumb. Like, I don't want a dating app for chatting or for swipe. I want it to date. Like, that's what I want. So my philosophy on it is like, let's just cut all that crap. Let's help you get to that first step as quickly as possible. So when it comes to bad advice, like you can get it from anyone. When you start your own business, when you start your own thing, everyone gives you advice. Everyone's got an opinion. Everyone means well most of the time, and will give you so much different advice. And sometimes you just have to trust your gut.
Yeah, and I've found that just to build on that point there, with regards to the bad piece of advice that you got given, it's actually a good business will remove friction for its client or its customer. And I think that all of the great businesses out there do exactly that. But our aim is that we get a brief and we deliver what you want within the budget and the time frame that you've set, and you're happy with the end result, and it's a seamless process. There's not loads of amends and feedback, and people are unhappy with the design and the quality, and we do a lot of stuff internally to ensure that that doesn't happen, and the clients get the best result. But I think of other companies, and you think about a coffee shop. I heard this on a podcast the other day that they were saying that they've got this coffee shop somewhere in Australia, and they've got 4 people in there working. One of them boils the milk, one of them makes or grinds the coffee and prepares the shot, and then the other one shouts out the name and gives them the coffee, and you're in and out within like a minute. And it's like, that's what people want, you know, they're going to work, they want to get in and get out and push on.
Yeah, you're right. And I'd add one little bit to that, which I think is really important, is it first comes from understanding what the client actually wants, right? And then removing all the friction to get there. My members, my customers, my users don't want to chat to people. They want to make friends, right? So like, how do I help them do that?
Like, very, very powerful, man. I think a lot of people miss that when they're setting up their businesses or even in their jobs at work. You know, you have to think about how do I remove the friction so our customer, our client, my boss, my manager isn't in pain dealing with those friction moments.
We're all busy. We've all got so much to do in our daily lives as well as in our jobs. Yeah, right. The easier you can make things on people, the better you're doing your job.
Yeah, 100%, man. So why don't you talk a little bit about what's next for you and Foura over the next 6 to 12 months?
Yeah, next 6 to 12 months before are pretty exciting, I think. So we are in the middle of raising an investment round. We're about 2/3 of the way through that. So we're still looking to speak to more investors, and we've got a few conversations happening. So I hope maybe by the time this actually gets broadcast, that will be done. But if not, or if you're interested in a future round, definitely kind of reach out to me. You can find me on LinkedIn, or perhaps my details will be shared somewhere else. But that money is really being used to fuel our growth. So we're looking to grow the team, hire more developers, hire some other people who can help us bring on venues and expand. You know, we've helped 4,500 people meet so far in Sydney and Melbourne. I'd love to double that, if not before the end of the year, then sooner. And to bring the service to people all across Australia, first and foremost. So we're expanding to Perth, Brisbane, Adelaide, maybe Canberra, and then really to look internationally. You know, hopefully by this time next year, we'll have done at least our first pod in the US. That really is the future for us. That's a huge market, big population, lots going on there. And for us to succeed as a global business, we really have to be able to crack the US as a market. So that's my goal, get into the US by this time next year. In order to do that, there's a lot of work for us to do in improving the service. And I say that despite the fact that 90% of the people who meet through Foura exchange contact details. So we're already doing something right. But for me, I know that there's room for improvement, and that there's more that we can do to help more people and to make that experience better. And then, as we talked about, introducing new features, new services to help people meet again and again and again and keep getting better. So if anyone's listening to this, watching this, and is interested in helping, contributing in some way, whether that's through employment, through connections, through investment, love to hear from you. As you can imagine, I'm always happy to chat.
You're a legend, man. Mate, thank you so much for taking the time out of your day to do this.
Yeah, cool. And no, thank you very much for having me on.